I'd like to take a look at how you might set up and draw a one-point perspective grid of your own. Now again, I have to be a little bit away from what I'm doing so that my big fat head doesn't get in the way, but I have to also draw very small so that there's room for everything to fit. So I hope you forgive me. I hope the lines look straight. So if I make a box back here, and if I divide it into 8 parts, 8 equal parts, that means that I will have a wall that's either 8 feet or could even be 16 feet in width. So that's why it's called relative scale. You decide on how big, how much space each of these boxes that we're going to make represents, and then you stick to that. So if I decide that each of these marks that I'm making represents 2 feet, not 1 foot, then this would be quite a large space. So I'm trying to keep this straight. This 4 inches. So, and that's what's meant by relative scale. It's the relationship, how they relate to each other. They're in terms of scale. So if that's my back wall, and I've got 8 by 8 feet, and I want to put my eye level, I can put it anywhere. I could even put it at 6 feet, but for only an 8-foot high ceiling, this is probably 5 feet is probably best. And you put it straight across as always. Now, if I want this wall to have the most attention, if there's something on there that's very important to show the client, then I would put my vanishing point over to the left. Or alternately, if the most important thing is on this wall, I'll put my vanishing point on the opposite side. It really just depends. Or down the middle if I want to talk about symmetry. Something very symmetrical and awe-inspiring, like all the Vatican, it's always shot, or most always shot, directly down the center so that you can see the altar perfectly placed as the focal point of everything. So I'm going to put it over here, and as you recall, we've done this so many times. We've projected our corners. This is like any other box we've drawn. We project our corners. And it's just a matter now of deciding how deep we want our floor to be. Because however many increments we put along this way, equal increments we put along this way, will be how many we get this way. You don't have to use all of them. You could use half or all, doesn't matter. So I'm going to stop down here. And as soon as I touch a perspective line, I know to go the other way. And touch a perspective line, go the other way, and you hold your breath and make sure your lines are straight and your big head's not in the way. Okay, so I'm off somewhere. So I've gone off somewhere. I'm going to try something in between these two, so that should be okay. Now, if I draw a diagonal line from corner to corner, and I begin to project these increments to the full length of the floor the full depth of the floor. Everywhere the increment touches that diagonal line will give me a horizontal line, something that will show me what a foot looks like. Or if I've decided 2 feet, these are all 2 feet. Since it's such a small grid, I might decide that they're worth 2. I assign 2 feet measure to them. Every time I see where this cross is, I'll draw a horizontal line, and that'll give me an increment across. Now this is really stretching it. I don't know if I'll ever be able to make these straight, given that I can't really reach them. But as long as you get the idea, these should be getting smaller as I go back. And you can create one of these to keep under your, you bring a pad of marker paper and a grab bag of markers with you, and you can set up some concepts for your client quite quickly if you have a little grid put underneath, because before you go, you could establish for yourself what dimensions the room in question are, and you could have a little grid set up already. You might they would probably send you some photos of what they're looking at, the dimensions for the room, and you could come with a grid, equipped with a grid underneath your marker paper, and you could start suggesting some things in some sketches right away. So here we have, oh, something went wrong. This is missing. So as I promised, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 feet back and 8 feet wide, and this would serve you well. And you could, everywhere the grid touches this perspective line, these perspective lines, you go straight up, and then you could carry them across the ceiling. Although that's a little iffy. Sometimes with the ceiling, all you need to know is where the center is, and that's easy to do. Just make an X at the top here. And that's easy. It's never where you think it's going to be, ever. So, but that would help if you have a ceiling light fixture that's right in the center. So this I would just keep going. And I can also go this way as well. So, before you leave for your client, to meet with your client, you could already have a grid established, and you just slide it underneath your marker paper. You might even know which already, if there's a fireplace in the room and that's going to be the focal point, your client has already decided they like that idea, then, or you having seen pictures they've sent you, you can have an idea of how to make that work. If maybe they're looking for extra storage space and they're living in, more and more we're living in tiny places, and we need ideas of how to give the illusion, or have the illusion that we have more than we do, so we don't feel crowded. So you would carry on and fill that in, and you've got your floor, fill your other wall in. If you want to go across the ceiling, you could go across the ceiling, that's not a problem. And you could always do this as well. Go back this way. But this wall is foreshortened. This wall would be where the most important thing to see, the most important, or this actually, where the vanishing point is, would be the true focal point. But there's got to be maybe some secondary interest on this wall to choose it over that one being the more foreshortened.